everyone, welcome back to Show Me How to Win. We're visiting Gamma Expo and we're checking out the Isle of Cats.
They dance around quite a lot here on this table, so we've got to be careful.
I backed this game. It arrived earlier this year, and I played it a lot. So, one of my favorite games, mainly because of all the cat meeples. So, next to me is Frank West, the designer, publisher of this game. So, Frank is going to show me how to play, how to win. So, but before that, Frank, tell me your inspiration behind the Isle of Cats. Did you grow up in a deserted island? Did you have a lot of cats? Were they different colors? Did you have to find fish using and carry them home with baskets? Tell me about it.
No, of course. I wish that I had grown up on an island for the cats. I think that my life would be very different, but I probably would have ended up in the same place. So fundamentally, I've always liked polyomino games, which are these kind of like Tetris-like games where you have these different shapes. But I always wanted one that was a little bit more complicated. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it, but it was something in the back of my mind. And one day I was sitting on the couch with my partner and we were watching our cats, and I was looking at them just thinking cats are really known for just stretching out into all of these weird positions, and it was a natural kind of concept for polyominoes. It would really make sense for them to kind of fit onto these tiles, and I wasn't really sure why no one had done this. And as kind of time went on, I just kind of thought to myself, why aren't I doing this? I want to do a polyomino game. I want to kind of do this, and there's nothing really like it out there. So that was the inspiration for how I got to the cat game. And then because all of my games sit within the City of Kings universe, which is this big fantasy kind of adventure, the theme and the narrative started to kind of pull from some of the stories within that game.
I see. Okay, so you must have at least two cats for them to and they're cuddling, they're in weird positions, fitting in perfectly together. How many cats do you have?
So right now I have two which stay with me at my home, and then I've got an older cat that's kind of still back at my mother's. When I kind of grew up with that cat, Ella, she grew up in the countryside and she's used to fields and kind of all this adventuring, and now I live in a very big city. I never felt like it was fair to kind of bring her into that. But prior to this part of my life, I used to have 6. So I certainly had...
All together?
Yeah, all together. There was this time where one of them got lost, and I walked down the road to try and find her, and I was calling her name, and by the time I found her, all my other cats had walked up to me, and as I was walking up the road, I had all of the cats around my feet and one in my arms, and every single person crossed to the other side of the road and were giving me these terrifying looks. So I'm a big cat fan.
The cat whisperer, you are.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so the cats you grew up with are outdoor cats, and then the ones you have right now are 2 indoor cats, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the ones we've got now, we've got these big cat wheels and all of this stuff in our house for them to go on adventures and things. So they get a lot of running and a lot of play. So
they're still happy.
Yeah, for sure. Very much so. Yeah. And now they're famous, So
I know. All right, so for those people who haven't played the Isle of Cats, can you give us a quick intro on how to play?
Yeah, of course. So basically this game is a card drafting and tile placement game. So you're going to be playing through 5 rounds, and on each round you're going to get some fish, which is the resource you use to kind of bribe cats into doing things. You're going to get 7 cards, of which you're going to select some, pass them around the table, keep choosing more cards, and then eventually you're going to pay for the ones that you want to keep using some of your fish. Those cards are then going to give you several things. Some of them are going to give you ways to score points, some of them are going to allow you to take cat tiles, and some of them are going to give you kind of other ways of generating more fish and so on. As you take the tiles, you're going to place them onto your boat, and you're going to place them in such a way that you're trying to complete as many of those cards that you've kind of selected prior in the game. So this game is quite different to a lot of polyomino games where you're not just trying to fill the whole board, you're more about how do you strategically place pieces to complete objectives.
Yeah, there's not enough turns for you to fill the whole board, and you're not going to have, honestly, enough fish to get enough cats. So it really is all depending on which gold card sets you choose and then which ones you get.
Yeah, completely. I would say that maybe about 1 in 1,000 people fill the boat. During the our Facebook group, I've seen probably 7 or 8 people say that they've done it. And on Board Game Geek now, there's been 5,000-6,000 people who have logged plays. So the game's probably been played, 10,000 times, and I've seen 6 or 7 people say they've done that.
Yeah, I guess if you set yourself like the goal you set for you is to fill it up, then maybe you can do it. But you may not necessarily be completing the gold cards then. Yeah. All right, cool. So the game is played in 5 rounds, and 5 rounds, right? Right. And then you need to basically rescue the cats off the island before the island goes kaput.
Yeah, exactly that. There's this evil warlord, and he's sailing along, and when he gets to the island, he's going to destroy it. He's waging war on like everything, and he's run out of resources, so he's going to chop down the trees, destroy it. You know, there's a slight eco-environmental message kind of going on in the background there, but we can't stop that, so we're more saving the animals and just trying to be the good guys in the story.
So we're trying to fill the cats on the boat and then and get some victory points at the same time, right? But then the cats, they won't just come to us. You need to use fish to lure them to come to you. So basically, it's resource management, it's hand management, drafting, and tiling,
yeah, exactly.
Right? Okay, so let's talk strategies, right? I play the game a few times. I usually play it with at least 2 or 3 other people. So what I usually do, round 1, is I grab a basket if I see a permanent basket. But I just talked to Frank right now, and he told me that's not necessarily a good idea. So Frank, tell me, what would you do for round 1? That first hand, what do you look for?
So I think the absolute most important thing to find in that very first choice is the lesson cards that are going to give you the way you're going to score points. Because if you can get a good lesson card and something that's really going to help you kind of build a path forwards, that's going to be a great place to start. Because it doesn't matter how many baskets you have or how many cats you have, if you don't have a good combination of lesson cards, you're never going to kind of get to those higher points. This game is all about the balance of how many cards do you take, how do those cards come together, and then how do you balance that with the number of cats you need to take in order to achieve them. So things like the permanent baskets, they on average are going to cost you around 6 fish in order to be able to take them. Now that means that over 5 rounds you're paying 1.2 fish per round. If you're not going to use them every round, the cost of them is going up, and there's some value there where you're kind of thinking, now I've kind of forced myself to make sure that I'm using this every turn, and because you're doing that, you're allocating extra fish towards doing that, which means that your opponents are able to kind of take cheaper baskets or have other cards which are maybe more affordable and more efficient in the long run.
Okay. And as we go on playing the game, I notice this happens a lot. Like you start seeing cards that you don't want, but it's great for somebody else. So it becomes kind of like all right, so and so, are you gonna, like, I'm going to take this card, but there's one more card here that's good, very good for player B. So player A, are you going to also take one for the team? There's a lot of table talk about that. So what do you do when you get a card that's, your hand of cards is not necessarily all good for you, but you see that your opponent, it'll be really good for your opponent?
I think this is one of the reasons the cards in this game have a cost associated with them. So you do the card draft, which means that you're going around and selecting cards. But once that's completed, you're then making a secondary decision of how many of those 7 cards am I going to keep. And generally speaking, and you can keep all 7, you can keep none of them, and I've seen both. But generally speaking, people are going to keep between like 3 and 5 cards, which means that there's always at least 2 cards that you can take, which you're not planning to keep and not pay for. So those extra cards are kind of designed to be in those kind of spaces where you're not keeping them, but you're taking them out of the draft and kind of disrupting the gameplay.
Okay, so what do you do when you are falling behind a little bit? You see everybody is ahead of you, they look like they have a bunch of lesson cards tucked under, but you're kind of at a loss, like maybe everybody's taking the lesson cards that would be good for you. So what would you do mid-game when you still don't have a clear goal?
I think one of the important things with this game is that most of the scoring, or all of the scoring, is counted up at the end, and most of it is hidden. Like you can see, like, have people filled a lot of their boat. You can see how many lesson cards someone has. You can see how many cats they've got together for kind of the cat families. So like the set collection element of the game. But you're never going to know how many of those lesson cards they've completed, how good they are, and so it's very hard to know if you're actually behind or not. And you can very easily panic. There's been plenty of games I've seen where you've had 1 or 2 lesson cards, someone else has had 6 or 7, but actually mine are worth like 10, 15 points, and theirs are worth like 2, 3, 4 points, and at the end that balance has come in. So the first thing to do is not worry that other people are ahead. And again, if you see people who've got lots and lots of cats on their board, if your lesson cards aren't focused on that, then it's fine. You're going to see that sometimes someone will have 80 points from cats and 20 points from lessons. Sometimes someone will have 20 points from cats and 80 points from lessons, and that kind of switch. So I think it's really about just being kind of composed and not panicking, and actually just thinking, what is still optimal for me? What's still going to work for me? And just how do you build up those connections? The game's designed with the way the rats are on the board that give you negative points, and the way the rooms need to be filled, which give you negative points if they're not. There's always something you can do to earn at least 1 point, or to at least counter something, so you can always kind of progress through. The main thing is just to make sure that you're spending all your fish. If you get to the end of the game and you still have like more than 1 or 2 fish, then you've probably not played optimally, and start buying more cards, taking more things.
Okay. So, what are your thoughts on the treasure cards?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, the treasure cards and treasure in general is...
And the weird-shaped cats.
Yes, the Oshaks. I absolutely love them because the treasure is one of these psychological things where, as you play these games, at the start of the game, you want to fit as much as possible. And the more you fill, the more powerful you feel, the more special you feel, and you feel like you're doing smart things. But what you're actually doing is you're taking away all the little tiles and all the things that you're going to need at the end of the game, which are going to actually allow you to do well. So by being clever early, you're kind of punishing your later player. So what that kind of means is you need to find a balance between how many do I take and what am I actually kind of removing from play for later. The Oshaks are the big kind of special cats here. They're wild cats, so they can be any color. And again, they're really funny because they're the biggest tiles in the game and they can be any color, so they're super powerful, but they're also designed to be the most awkward shapes, and they're so hard, and often people will take them because they go, that's the most efficient thing to buy, it can do anything, and then for the next 2 or 3 turns they'll be struggling to place pieces around them. So there's kind of like pros and cons to taking them, and it's certainly not always the best option, but they can be very well suited.
Okay, so let's talk about different player accounts, because you have different strategies for different player accounts, so let's go over that.
So in 2 players, you're going to want to be kind of a lot more focused on what the other players are doing as well as yourself. Because obviously, every card you don't take, you know they're going to have the option to take. But also, because of that, you will see what lesson cards they're taking because they're not coming back to you. So even though the cards are hidden, you can often tell what they are. And this is one of the reasons in the game that the discard pile is face down. Because when people have got their 7 cards and they discard some, you never quite know whether it's the lesson card you saw or the lesson card you didn't see. So there's quite a lot of kind of back and forth in the 2-player game where you're directly trying to suss out what they want and what they're trying to achieve. As you kind of get to more players, it becomes interesting because you get a lot more public lessons, which are the ones which are everyone scores points. So generally the scoring is higher, but there's a lot more kind of competitiveness. So for example, if I'm playing blue cats, and you can see I've got lots of blue cats, and yes, exactly, the hiss snippers. And if you're not interested in blue cats, then at that point, I might kind of think, okay, I'm great, I'm sorted. But another player might go, well, if I play the one where everyone gets points for blue cats, then maybe you're going to start taking blue cats to counter me. And that player doesn't have to worry about taking them because now you're suddenly fixing that problem for them. So the public lessons kind of give you, in a larger player count, ways to kind of force other players to have to deal with other people a little bit more than in the 2-player game.
Okay, Frank, so what are some of your favorite lessons or favorite cards, favorite ways to play?
So for me, I'm a big fan of the cards that kind of change how you place things on your boat, the positional kind of stuff. So for example, there's a lesson card that says that you get 12 points for filling the outside edge of your boat. And you can always see when someone's going to be doing this, you know, because you kind of see them placing pieces and everyone across the table is like, what are you placing that there? It's a stupid position for it. And as you get more of these cards, like leaving rooms empty or trying to fill the middle of your boat, they kind of drastically change the way you think about how you place tiles. So many of these games are based on how do I just fill everything, that I really love that dynamic of actually it's more about how do I optimally fill certain areas as opposed to like just the whole space.
What about your favorite cat?
So this is always difficult because like the white ones I think are like kind of visually, like I really enjoy looking at them. They're kind of this mysterious creature. There's not many of them in like the narrative, hence why they're special in the game. But then like the blue one is like so cute and fluffy, and it's like if I had one at home, that's the one I would want kind of running around my house. But then the purple one is the one which is probably the one that I most associate with me. It's really interested in the stars and space, and it's kind of always found just looking up and kind of thinking and being that little bit wiser and kind of older looking and a bit hairy. And I like the purple ones, and purple's my favorite color, so that helps as well.
By the way, in case you don't know, every single cat in this game is different.
Yeah.
And you actually have something new in the horizon. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so obviously the game itself has kind of just recently come out, and I'm now kind of exploring different expansions, different content, and I want to kind of do that in a way where we're having both, new things that you can purchase, but also perhaps supporting things that you can just download and use as well. So at the moment there's a solo mode in the game where you're fighting against your evil sister that stowed away on your boat, and you're trying to beat her and prove that you're the better sibling. And that's a slightly more puzzly game than the multiplayer game, because the solo players, I kind of feel like they want that challenge. So now I've been exploring a rule set where you can bring the sister into the multiplayer game and have all the players playing against that. But if that does kind of get out there, then that's something I'm probably just going to put as an online PDF, because it will just be a new rule set as opposed to new components. So it's kind of this balance between where those are going to come out and how they're going to work through.
Cool. And for the people who don't have this game yet, where can they get them?
So the game is releasing in retail from March 16th, so everyone should just about be able to pick up the game now. It should be out in your stores. If it's not, then go and ask your local retailer why it isn't, and they should be able to get it. And that's kind of worldwide, it's Australia, Canada, America, Europe. Like, we've really been working hard to make sure that this is available everywhere. So if it's not, ask your retailer and they'll be able to get it for you.
Cool. Well, thank you, Frank, so much for showing me how to play and how to win the Isle of Cats. And thank you guys for watching.